So, welcome everybody. Day 12 of the book reading A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. Happiness as a role versus true happiness. How are you? Just great. Couldn't be better. True or false? In many cases, happiness is a role people play, and behind the smiling facade, there is a great deal of pain. Depression, breakdowns, and overreactions are common when unhappiness is covered up behind a smiling exterior and brilliant white teeth. When there is denial, sometimes even to oneself, there is much unhappiness. Just fine is a role the ego plays more commonly in America than in certain other countries where being and looking miserable is almost the norm and therefore more socially acceptable. It is probably an exaggeration, but I'm told that in the capital of one Nordic country, you run the risk of being arrested for drunken behavior if you smile at strangers in the street. If there is unhappiness in you, first you need to acknowledge that it is there, but don't say I am unhappy. Unhappiness has nothing to do with who you are. Say there is unhappiness in me. Then investigate it. A situation you find yourself in may have something to do with it. Action may be required to change the situation or remove yourself from it. If there is nothing you can do, face what is and say, well, right now, this is how it is. I can either accept it or make myself miserable. The primary cause of unhappiness is never the situations, but your thoughts about it. I repeat, the primary cause of unhappiness is never the situation. It's but your thoughts about the situation. Be aware of the thoughts you're thinking. Separate them from the situation, which is always neutral, which always is as it is. There is the situation or the fact, and here are my thoughts about it. Instead of making up stories, stay with the facts. For example, I am ruined is a story. It limits you and prevents you from taking effective action. I have 50 cents left in my bank account is a fact. Facing facts is always empowering. Be aware that what you think to a large extent creates the emotions that you feel. See the link between your thinking and your emotion. Rather than being your thoughts and emotion, be the awareness behind them. Don't seek happiness. If you seek it, you won't find it because seeing is the antithesis of happiness. Happiness is ever elusive, but freedom from unhappiness is attainable now by facing what is rather than making up stories about it. Unhappiness covers up your natural state of well being and inner peace, the source of true happiness. So, जब भी हम happiness की बात करते हैं ना, it's always said that it's something external. But whereas our true state is happiness. It's just that जब हम कोई external चीज ऑब्जेक्ट या एक्सपीरियंस में उसको एक्सपीरियंस करते हैं we feel that it's there outside, but it's just an experience which is there inside of you. It gets triggered, so you get a glimpse of what happiness is, whereas your true state is of happiness. And in a lot of cases, they say कि मेरे को इस चीज से खुशी मिलती है, मेरे को इस चीज से खुशी नहीं मिलती है, या this is or they will have a face that says that they're always happy and deep down they are struggling with a lot of things. So the whole concept of this, the main purpose is to accept it, but in a lot of cases somehow we are not able to accept. I have a bad relationship where it's an abusive relationship, or I have a bad boss, or whatever it is in your life. There are certain things where you cannot accept it as it is. वो नहीं आता, अंदर से नहीं आता. आप बोलने को बोल दो, हाँ आई एक्सेप्टेड, आई लेट गो ऑफ ऑल दैट इज देयर, एंड मैंने क्लियर कर दिया, मेरी क्लियरिंग हो गई है, मेरी हीलिंग हो गई है. नो, द पॉइंट ऑफ द मैटर इज वी नीड टू फर्स्ट, बिफोर एक्सेप्टेंस, start acknowledging things. Because if it's in your space, if it's in your vicinity and you're experiencing it, that means we need to first acknowledge the existence. And that is being factual कि हाँ ये हो रहा है मेरे साथ. Okay, I am witnessing this is happening in my life, and this is very important because you're not lying. You cannot accept the situation because of certain issues, because you do not want to also accept it. You're not comfortable with the acceptance of it. But what you can do is start acknowledging it. Because once you start acknowledging things in your space, because anything and everything that is happening in your life right now is not a coincidence. It's there for a lesson, it's there for you to experience something, it is there for you to learn something, it is there for you to understand something. It is there for with a purpose, for sure. Till the time we are not aware of that purpose, until the time we are not in true acceptance of what is as it is, just start with acknowledging that it's there. And that's a power step. Because the moment I accept, or the moment I acknowledge that this is happening, it gives you that power, that empowerment comes inside of you, where you are not affected by the meaning you are giving to that situation. Because हर एक situation को जब हम वो एक judgment या label या एक meaning दे देते हैं ना, that is what creates the issue. In itself, there is no issue. It's only our meaning to that person, situation, circumstance, or event that creates the whole concept. But the moment we shift ourselves into an empowered state of mind where we acknowledge what is there in our reality, nahi accept ho raha, it's okay. True acceptance will come with time. Let time do that. But what you have right now with you to empower yourself is to be aware and is to acknowledge things. यार ये हो तो रहा है मेरे साथ, ये पैटर्न सा बन रहा है, आई एम नॉट कंफर्टेबल विद इट, समझ नहीं आ रही क्या है, and I acknowledge that it exists. So don't run away from that. And once you start acknowledging things, start empowering yourself with this knowledge of acknowledgement, things started to move, things will start to make sense, things will automatically try and get resolved. Because in a lot of situations we cannot accept things as they are. हम तो लड़ते रहते हैं. It's like a constant fight. Everybody accept the fact. यार नहीं हो रहा मेरे से accept. And this was one very important lesson which I was taught by somebody during my stage where I was very confused. Yeah, there's so much happening, I can't accept it. I mean, बोल रहा हूं मैं, I'm trying to fake it till I make it, but हाँ नहीं हो रहा मेरे से accept. So this person, we were I think having coffee together or something, she really changed the perspective of me by this fact. He start acknowledging things. And yes, believe you me, that since that time, I see there is a huge difference. Because if I can't accept it, it's okay. It does not bother me. Because what is more important right now is that I am in that empowered state where I'm acknowledging the existence of this is there in my life. Anything I can do about it, Again, I would like to do anything I cannot do about it. It's okay. Let time do whatever it has to do. All I can do right now is acknowledge that it exists. And it's rightly said, everything in our life starts from that thought. एक थॉट आता है, हमने किसी चीज को सोचा, फिर उस थॉट के साथ हमारे इमोशंस अटैच होते हैं, and then we start creating it in our own reality of what is happening in and around us all the time. So whenever anything is there which you cannot accept, just acknowledge the existence of that. That will change your thought. That will change, because then otherwise, because when there is a fight and you're not able to accept, so the emotion will be anger, the emotion will be grief. कि मैं क्यों नहीं accept कर पा रहा? Why am I not able to accept? But when you change or shift that thought to acknowledge, okay, it exists. क्यों मुझे नहीं पता. I am uncomfortable. This I know. Then you start breaking the barriers of existence in terms of making that relation to why, what, kya hai, and then you're able to, basically decode that part. Yeah, Thabar, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, just wanted to, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So just wanted to, ask you this. Give me 1 second. When we, like we're talking about acceptance and, about how should we, that is the way that we should move on. And, by first acknowledging and then accepting. But what I feel is personally, I, a step for me before the acceptance is a step of where I communicate what I feel, what it could be coming out from my ego, or it could be coming out from my belief or whatever, or subconscious mind. That so if I am given situation which I'm facing, and I feel that accepting it, acknowledging it, and accepting it is the way which will, of course, which is the only way I feel, because the situation or the conditions are not conducive, or I think they would not be going in a way which I am hoping them to go. But I would still, be, but I would still be, more calm and composed by first asserting my point of view. Is that what I feel, what I think, and then ultimately acknowledging and accepting it is, of course, what is it. But what I feel is, personally, if I straight away accept and acknowledge it and accept it, and not let out my emotions or my my point of view at that time, my point of view with my emotions, that if I do not agree with this because I feel this is not fair, but of course it's your decision, and then I would acknowledge it and accept it. So I think that's something personally which I feel has been more useful for me.
Yeah. No, it happens. See, the whole point is, I am not asking you guys to accept. Let the acceptance come when it has to come. But if you want to give your point of view, you should do that. You can do that. And also, when you're talking about that, you're acknowledging that it exists, is not acceptance. It's just being factual कि ये है तो सही. मुझे तो नहीं पसंद है, that is my point of view very clearly. या मुझे पसंद है, नहीं पसंद है, I'm in favor, without favor. That's my point of view, that's there. And it's not acceptable, that's very clear. That is why when the acceptance will come, because acceptance is not something that you can get, it will come. Because there will be a time where that thing will not trigger you. So in order to get to that acceptance, whenever it comes, you need to start acknowledging that, yes, I agree this exists. I am uncomfortable about it. That's my point of view. But that does not make me deny the fact कि ये चीज है नहीं. मैं उसको नजरअंदाज.
Yeah, I mean, because I understand, through this journey of awareness, that there are situations which are beyond our control. I mean, most of them. What is In control is only us and our emotions. So, but it helps me uh, accept it at a later stage more if at that point of time when I'm in the situation, if I'm able to, you know, go out and try to make the other person understand and even say that this probably is not acceptable to me, but okay, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah,
So that helps me accept it at a later stage little more easily.
yeah. See, because the whole issue is life may, what you're saying is very important. Maximum चीजें जो हमारे साथ होती हैं आर नथिंग बट गैदर्ड इमोशंस जो कि ट्रॉमा बन जाते हैं व्हेन वी आर अनएबल व्हेन वी हैव नॉट एक्सप्रेस्ड देम. मुझे गुस्सा आ रहा है, मैंने गुस्सा पी लिया, बट आई डिड नॉट रेज माई एंगर आउट. व्हाट डिड आई डू? इन ऑर्डर टू लुक गुड मैंने वो गुस्सा पी लिया. अब वो पिया है मैंने, तो कहीं तो स्टोर होगा ना. अब वो जिस
Yeah.
बॉडी पार्ट पे जाके स्टोर होगा, there things will start, getting on the wrong direction, because that's nothing but a negativity which had to be released. Agar
Yeah.
if you cannot express it in front of the actual person, it's very important to get that out of your system, because if you give those feelings, those emotions, those unhealthy emotions address in your body, that's like you're storing the trauma in your body, and then it's going to manifest into a state of disease.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I,
very
so I
important.
just had a situation where something which was happening was I felt is totally unfair, and I'm going to have a big monetary loss in it. Some commercial dealing with some customers, and I told them that, look, see, what you're asking for is, according to me, quite unfair. But you're a customer. If this is what it takes for you to be happy, for you to, if it sounds fair to you, okay, you know, I'll think about it and discuss with our family. But for me, it's quite unfair. And ultimately, I still had to do what they were saying. But then now it's a little more acceptable to me.
See, इसमें ना मैं देखो, I mean, this is not part of the book, but yeah, I can just guide from my experience. What I do now is, whenever anything that is happening now that is not acceptable, जो को नहीं हमें नहीं accept हो रहा, just put an intention to the universe. Whatever is for my best and highest interest, I am open to receive. So slowly, each and everything that is for your highest and best interest will start manifesting in life. I'm not part
Hmm.
of the book, but yeah, in general situations, you can do that.
No, great. Thanks.
Parenthood, role or function. Many adults play roles when they speak to younger children. They use silly words and sounds. They talk down to the child. They don't treat the child as an equal. The fact that you temporarily know more of, that you are bigger, does not mean the child is not your equal. The majority of adults at some point in their lives find themselves being a parent, one of the most universal roles. The all important question is, are you able to fulfill the function of being a parent and fulfill it well without identifying with that function, that is, without it becoming a role? Part of the necessary function of being a parent is looking after the needs of the child, preventing the child from getting into danger, and at times telling the child what to do and not to do. When being a parent becomes an identity, however, when your sense of self is entirely or largely derived from it, the function easily becomes overemphasized, exaggerated, and takes you over. Giving children what they need becomes excessive and turns into spoiling. Preventing them from getting into danger becomes overprotectiveness and interferes with their need to explore the world and try things out for themselves. Telling children what to do or not to do becomes controlling, overbearing. What is more, the role playing identity remains in place long after the need for those particular functions has passed. Parents then cannot let go of being a parent even when the child grows into an adult. They can't let go of the need to be needed by their child. Even when the adult child is 40 years old, parents can't let go of the notion, and I know what's best for you. The role of a parent is still being played compulsively, and so there is no authentic relationship. Parents define themselves by that role and are unconsciously afraid of identity when they cease being parents. If their desire to control or influence the actions of their adult child is thwarted, as it usually is, they will start to criticize or show their disapproval or try to make the child feel guilty, all in an unconscious attempt to preserve their role, their identity. On the surface, it looks as if they were concerned about their children and they themselves believe it. But they are only really concerned about preserving their role identity. All egoic motivations are self enhancement and self interest, sometimes cleverly disguised even from the person in whom the ego operates. A mother or father who identifies with the parental role may also try to become more complete through their children. The ego's need to manipulate others into filling the sense of lack it continuously feels is then directed toward them. If the mostly unconscious assumptions and motivations behind the parents' compulsion to manipulate their children were made conscious and voiced, they would probably include some or all of the following. I want you to achieve what I never achieved. I want you to be somebody in the eyes of the world so that I too can be somebody through you. Don't disappoint me. I sacrificed so much for you. My disapproval of you is intended to make you feel so guilty and uncomfortable that you finally conform to my wishes. And it goes without saying that I know what's best for you. I love you and I will continue to love you if you do what I know is right for you. And this is very common in all parents, fathers, mothers, irrespective of who they are. Number one thing we as parents need to accept कि हमें parenting करनी नहीं आती है. That's number one acceptance, acknowledgement you need to give to yourself. Because the way we were brought up, based on those certain patterns, beliefs, systems, and conditionings, we are now taking care of our children as their parents. That's not the only qualification required. There are, conscious parenting is a good topic where you have a lot of good coaches where you should all go at least once. And they have these free seminars online, YouTube पे बड़े अच्छे होते हैं. So first, accept कि नहीं आता. Second, the whole concept of telling the child what is best for him with your analysis is not for him. It's a part of you that could not do that when you were a child. And what you're trying to do is just project it from you to your child something you wanted to do. अब इसका मतलब ये तो है नहीं कि आप बच्चों को कुछ बोलो ना. Let them be. I mean, they will not be, at that thing. they will be distorted, कुछ भी कर लेंगे फिर. So the most important thing for us as parents, not to be driven by that ego of what we could not do as childs or when we were, in our childhood, is to acknowledge this fact that as a parent, I can only guide him or her. I cannot do things for them. I should not do anything which they have to do. All I can do is guide them through whatever knowledge I have gained and respect their decision of whatever they take. ये एक बेसिक चीज है. Do not force your things on children. Guide them, support them, and always bless them and protect them. As a parent, you can only do these 4 things. इसके अलावा जो आप कर रहे हो वो आपका ईगो है. जो आप बचपन में नहीं कर पाए वो अपने बच्चों के साथ आप करने की कोशिश करें. And the moment you try to look from the angle of these 4 things, I repeat, you can support them, you can guide them, you can bless them, and you can protect them. These are the 4 things you are getting from God. Similarly, these are the 4 things you can do for your children. Anything other than that, or anything that you bring into their awareness, I am paying your school fees, how dare you do not study and everything, it is nothing but a part of your ego projection on your child. And one thing very clear, ये बड़े लोगों को एक misconception है, which I also had till a long time, that I can be my child's friend. I am my child's child. मैं अपने बच्चों का दोस्त हूँ. Always remember, your parents or your children, for you are the parents. The parent will be a parent. Let them have their own friends. Because as a parent, your primary responsibility is to guide them, is to support them, is to protect them, and fourth and the most important is to bless them. Try, have a good relationship. Mazak karo, but yes, let them have their own friends, because they should have their own friends of their own thing, of their own age group or whatever is their interest. Not go with that mindset. No, मैं को अपने बच्चों का दोस्त बनना. No, you are a parent. You have a responsibility. You can have a good relationship with your child, but you cannot undergo the responsibility that I am their father or mother. And yes, conscious parenting, do explore. If I get hold of anything, I will share, because this is something which is very important, and it starts with this acknowledgement कि यार, we don't know. ना ही हमें किसी ने सिखाया है, ना ही हमने कोई एफर्ट किया है. बस हम पेरेंट बन गए हैं बाय द ग्रेस ऑफ गॉड, एंड हमारी शादी हो गया, वॉट एवर. बट इज देयर एनीथिंग दैट वी हैव that we can do for our children is to acknowledge that yes, we need to learn how to be a good parent. And always remember that as a good parent, your basic responsibility is to make sure that your child is a good human being. Successful, money, career, everything is secondary. Focus on them so that they can be good human beings. And as a parent, guide them, support them, protect them, and bless them. That's the most important thing you can ever do for a child. Rest everything is from the egoic space. ये 4 चीजें egoic space से नहीं चलती, because that's the relationship as a parent you have. When you make such unconscious motivations conscious, you immediately see how absurd they are. The ego that lies behind them becomes visible, as does its dysfunction. Some parents that I spoke to suddenly realized, my God, is this what I have been doing? Once you see what you are doing or have been doing, you also see its futility, and the unconscious pattern then comes to an end by itself. Awareness is the greatest agent for change. If your parents are doing this to you, do not tell them they are unconscious and in the grip of the ego. They will likely, that will likely make them even more unconscious, because the ego will take up a defensive position. It is enough for you to recognize that it is the ego in them, that it is not who they are. Egoic patterns, even long standing ones, sometimes dissolve almost miraculously when you don't oppose them internally. Opposition only gives them a renewed strength, but even if they don't, you can then accept your parents' behavior with compassion without needing to react to it. That is to say, without personalizing it. Be aware also of your unconscious assumptions or expectations that lie behind your old habitual reactions to them. My parents should approve of what I do. They should understand me and accept me for who I am. Really? Why should they? The fact is, they don't, because they can't. Their evolving consciousness hasn't made the quantum leap to the level of awareness yet. They are not yet able to disidentify from their role. Yes, but I can't feel happy and comfortable with who I am unless I have their approval and understanding. Really? What difference does this approval or disapproval truly make to who you are? All such unexamined assumptions cause a great deal of negative emotion, much unnecessary unhappiness. Be alert. Are some of the thoughts that go through your mind the internalized voice of your father or mother, saying perhaps something like, you are not good enough, you will never amount to anything, or some other judgment or mental position? If there is awareness in you, you will be able to recognize that voice in your head for what it is: an old thought conditioned by the past. If there is awareness in you, you no longer need to believe in every thought you think. It's an old thought, no more. Awareness means presence, and only presence can dissolve the unconscious past in you. If you think you're so enlightened, Ramdas said, go and spend a week with your parents. This is good advice. The relationships with your parents is not only the primordial relationship that sets the tone for all subsequent relationship, it is also a good test for your degree of presence. The more shared past there is in a relationship, the more present you need to be. Otherwise, you will be forced to relive the past again and again. So, as you know, as an individual, we need to realize and accept our source relationship, that is, our parents, mother and father, because that's the reason why we are here. Okay, the existence of who I am in this physical body on this planet Earth at this particular time was possible only because of two people, mother and father. So that's the source from where I as an individual exist. Okay, so एक चीज को सबसे importantly करना है, there is nothing which is beyond the source relationship. Everything is secondary. All relationships for you are secondary, because the number one relationship is your source relationship, because you exist because of these two people. और जो आज आपकी एग्जिस्टेंस में आ रहा है in terms of your conditioning, in terms of your belief system, programming, whatever name you want to call it, the source plays a major role. In fact, I mean, all those who are there talking about alternative modalities of healing and everything. So if you do a lot of mind work, you do a lot of regression work, a lot of your current life issues, a lot of your current life issues, I think around 70 to 80% are because of what happened with you in your past with your own parents. And that's a fact. So you cannot let this relationship just be. It is most important. And yet, when you're talking about healing your own self, all you have to actually, very important to heal your relationship with your parents, mother and father. And father और mother के जो lineage के issues भी होते हैं ना, they are all because of that your relationship with your parents. So if you're having issues with money, say, पैसा नहीं टिकता ये नहीं, explore your relationship with your father, because psychologically your relationship with your father is all about your money issues in your current life. And if you're having issues in your current life which is related to love or nurturance, explore your relationship with your mother. This exploration, if you cannot do on your own, then you need a therapy. But yes, ये सारा का सारा base वो source से ही start होगा. So that relationship is very important. And you cannot just let it be कि मेरे parent मैं तो बात ही नहीं कर रहा नहीं. No, nothing doing. You have to, relive it and again and again, again and again. आपको पता भी नहीं लगेगा. But yes, what is important is to value that relationship. As a parent, you need to value your relationship with your source and be a good example so that your children also give you that respect, that, and understand this thing that they are here because of the mother and father. So that's a trickle down effect that is going to happen. The way you are with your parents now is exactly how your children are going to be with you when you grow up. So it's a very nice karmic cycle which has to be completed. Yeah, Supriya, you have your hand up.
Yeah, you had mentioned about this source healing relation. You remember you had mentioned that you're doing. So
Yeah.
are you going to be taking like sessions on this? Like, have you been able to complete it? Because you had mentioned that to me that we could do it, you know.
I have it with me. I do it, but yeah, not on a public
Right,
forum
right.
as of now.
So you've completed that is what I was asking.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Conscious suffering. If you have young children, give them help, guidance, and protection to the best of your ability. But even more important, give them space to be. They come into this world through you, but they are not yours. The belief, I know what's best for you, may be true when they are very young, but the older they get, the less true it becomes. The more expectations you have of how their life should unfold, the more you are in your mind instead of being present for them. Eventually, they will make mistakes and they will experience some form of suffering, as all humans do. In fact, they may be mistakes only from your perspective. What to you is a mistake may be exactly what your children need to do or experience. Give them as much help and guidance as you can, but realize that you may also at times have to allow them to make mistakes, especially as they begin to reach adulthood. At times, you may also have to allow them to suffer. Suffering may come to them out of the blue, or it may come as a consequence of their own mistakes. Wouldn't it be wonderful if you could spare them from all sufferings? No, it wouldn't. They would not evolve as human beings and would remain shallow, identified with the external form of things. Suffering derives you deeper. The paradox is that suffering is caused by identification with form and erodes identification with form. A lot of it is caused by the ego. Although eventually suffering destroys the ego, but not until you suffer consciously. Humanity is destined to go beyond suffering, but not in the way the ego thinks. One of the ego's many erroneous assumptions, one of its many deluded thoughts is, I should not have to suffer. Sometimes the thought gets transferred to someone close to you. My child should not have to suffer. That thought itself lies at the root of suffering. Suffering has a noble purpose, the evolution of consciousness and the burning of the ego. The man on the cross is an archetypal image. He is every man and every woman. As long as you resist suffering, it is a slow process because the resistance creates more ego to burn up. When you accept suffering, however, there is an escalation of that process, which is brought about by the fact that you suffer consciously. You can accept suffering for yourself, or you can accept it for someone else, such as your child or parent. In the midst of conscious suffering, there is already the transmutation, the fire of suffering, because the light of consciousness. The ego says, I shouldn't have to suffer. And that thought makes you suffer so much more. It's a distortion of the truth, which is always paradoxical. The truth is that you need to say yes to suffering before you can transcend the same. So when we are talking about conscious suffering, when you're talking about suffering for our children, it's very important to make sure that they have their own set of experiences as and when they are growing up. You know, I mean, I am also from that space at times where, the human emotions get, and I do not want my children to suffer, and I become overprotected towards them and probably go out of the way for anything and everything at times. But yeah, that thought of having their own experiences themselves, learning the lesson themselves, maybe the hard way, is very important because that's part of their journey. अगर हम अपने बच्चों को as a parent, as a conscious parent, if we do not let them have their own experiences in life and we just want to impose our experiences on them based on our upbringing, based on the belief system I am carrying, based on my programming, my conditioning in my childhood, it's like, taking your glasses, whatever number it is, and putting it on your child, beta dekh duniya aankh se. And he's like, it's very uncomfortable, it's very easy. No, the world is hazy. I'm telling you, I know what's best for you. So rather than putting your perceptory glasses of your belief, your conditioning, of what happened with you, be open and let them have their own experiences. and let them do things on their own. It's very important for them to experience it. I remember the first time we had gone to a hotel. Okay, so my son was about 7 years at that time, the elder one, and we wanted to order food. As a parent, I know what is best. Dial the in-room dining, khana order kar do. But I said, no, yeah, let him also experience. I told him, you make that call and tell him we want this. ये menu मैंने उसके सामने कर दिया. मैं कैसे बात करूंगा, मैं कैसे करूंगा, ये है वो है. There was that resistance, that hitch. Okay, I said it's okay. मैं अभी करता हूँ. So lunch you order or dinner you order, like this. So I made one call in front of him to tell him how it works, and then the next meal I told him you order. So when he experienced, ये थोड़ा सा glitch हुआ, नहीं कर पाया, I had to be there with him, support him, and थोड़ा थोड़ा guide भी करा था, ये बोल दे, whatever, in the best way I could do at that time probably. His confidence increased. And I think after one or two more trips, I mean, it was very strange that the entire food had been ordered. And now it's so different. I get a message saying that this is what I've ordered on Zomato. Please make the payment. But yeah, what's more important is let them have their own experiences. आपने अपने experience कर लिए हैं. That's part of who you are. You are a living machine of your belief system, your conditioning, your programming. So don't impose those on your children. Let them have their own experiences. They are on their own journey. And always remember, what you can do best for your children is just guide them, support them, protect them, and bless them, and give them space. Let them make mistakes. अगर कुछ दर्द हो रहा है, कुछ suffering हो रहा है, it's okay. It's absolutely okay. It's part of their growing up. It's part of their learning, their experience. Because as a parent, when we feel that our prime responsibility is to take care of our children, we forget one basic thing. They are an equally empowered soul, which is here on planet Earth on his own individual journey to experience for which it is truly here on planet Earth. And that's the respect they deserve, to have their own experiences rather than we being dominant and imposing our own set of experiences on them. So let them be chill. I always say, I don't know how my kids react to it, but yeah, I always say chill, it's okay, ho jayega, theek hai, like that. So in terms of, you can't be those paranoid person who's all the time thinking nahi yaar mere bachcho ko ye hai wo. It's okay that you have a concern. I'm not denying, as a parent you have a concern, but just don't impose your belief, your conditioning, and your programming on them, and let them be. They are also human beings, just like you are, just like your partner is. And one basic thing, if we are human beings on this school of earth, it's okay to make mistakes. Because if we are perfect, we will not be here on planet Earth and we will transcend to higher realms. So it is a fact that if we are in a human body on planet Earth at this particular point of time, we will make mistakes and we will learn from them. And that's the same for your child. He will make mistakes and he will learn from them. Conscious parenting. Many children harbor hidden anger and resentment toward their parents, and often the cause is inauthenticity in the relationship. The child has a deep longing for a parent to be there as a human being, not as a role, no matter how consistently that role is being played. You may be doing all the right things and the best you can do for a child, but even doing the best you can is not enough. In fact, doing is never enough if you neglect being. The ego knows nothing of being but believes you will eventually be saved by doing. If you are in the grip of the ego, you believe that by doing more and more, you will eventually accumulate enough doings to make yourself feel complete at some point in the future. You won't. You will not. You will not only lose yourself in doing, the entire civilization is losing itself in doing that is not rooted in being and thus becomes futile. How do you bring being into the life of a busy family? Into the relationship with your child? The key is to give your child attention. There are two kinds of attention. One we might call form based attention, the other is formless attention. Form based attention is always connected in some way with doing or evaluation. Have you done your homework? Eat your dinner, tidy up your room, brush your teeth, do this, stop doing that. Hurry up, get ready. What's the next thing we have to do? This question pretty much summarizes what family life is like in many homes. Form based attention is, of course, necessary and has its place. But if that's all there is in a relationship with your child, then the most vital dimension is missing, and being becomes completely obscured by doing, by the cares of the world, as Jesus puts it. Formless attention is inseparable from the dimension of being. How does it work? As you look at, listen to, touch, or help your children with this or that, you are alert, still, completely present, not wanting anything other than that moment as it is in this way. You make room for being. In that moment, if you are present, you are not a father or mother, you are the alertness, the stillness, the presence that is listening, looking, touching, even speaking. You are being behind the doing. So it's